Welcome to Schools Not Out, your daily classroom for CSEC and CAPE students. You can watch this lesson real-time on Television Jamaica's YouTube channel or One Spot Media. We also are live on Music 99 and gojamaica.com. If you have questions on today's subject, you can send them in to Television Jamaica's Facebook page or Instagram at television_Jamaica. Today's lesson is Communication Studies. We will be focusing on Speaking and Writing, Module 3. I am Kelleen Ayton. So, what are today's objectives? The objectives from CAPE Communication Studies syllabus says students should be able to identify the elements in the process of communication and the process of communication, distinguish between facilitators and barriers to communication, discuss forms of communication and context of communication. For today, we will be specifically looking at the elements in the process of communication, discussing the communication process, looking at barriers and facilitators of communication, distinguishing between verbal and non-verbal communication, discussing the functions of non-verbal communication, and lastly, the context of communication. Let's begin. So, we are going to get engaged.
The Americas. Welcome to the Norman Manley International Airport, your gateway to the Caribbean and the Americas. Welcome to the Norman Manley International Airport, your gateway to the Caribbean and the Americas. Welcome to the Norman Manley International Airport, your gateway to the Caribbean and the Americas. Welcome to the Norman Manley International
Daddy,
Airport.
How far away are you? I'm really tired right now, sleepy. It's been over 2 hours I'm waiting on you. How far? Yes, the flight came in a long time ago. So you're at the roundabout? Thank you so much. See you soon, Dad. Love you. So, students, that was our engagement. I did a little dramatization a while ago, and the purpose for that was to have you thinking or be able to identify what are the elements of communication. So think back at what you just saw, what you just heard. What are some key elements to communication? You should have realized that we had a sender, we had a message, we had a channel or medium, we had a receiver, and lastly, there was feedback. So let us specifically identify them in the engagement. Who was the sender? I was the sender. I was calling. What's the message? So I need to get picked up urgently. I'm ready to go. I'm tired. Let's look at the channel. So what did I use? My cell phone. And who is the receiver? The receiver was my father. And lastly, did I get a feedback? Yes, he said he's on his way, that is at the roundabout. So all of these on the screen, students, identify the key elements in communication, right? So we have a sender, we have a message, we have a channel, we have a receiver, and certainly we end with the feedback. Let us look at the communication process. What really happens, students, when we are communicating? There are key things that must be in place in order for communication to be effective. Okay, what are these elements? So firstly, we have the message should be conceived. We have message encoded. We have medium selected. We have message decoded, message interpreted, and lastly, feedback supplied. Now I want to point out the first three, and we are going anti-clockwise. So that's message conceived, message encoded, the medium selected. Answer this question, whose business is that? Is that the sender or is it the receiver? You should be able to identify that this is the sender's role, the first three. The last three, that's the business of the receiver, to decode, to interpret, and certainly to provide feedback. So let us spend a little bit more time looking on these, the process, the steps involved, and actually what happens at each of these steps. So remember, this is the sender's role. Conceptualization. Students, we don't just get up and send and start talking or just writing. It should be a conscious decision to send a message that's conceptualizing. And this is prompted by an external or an internal stimulus. So guess what? You're sitting at the TV screen right now and you feel hungry. That's an internal stimulus. And you may call, Mommy, get me some water. Mommy, get me something to eat, please. The external one has to do with outside. So guess what? You look outside and you notice the neighbor's house is on fire. That's the external stimulus telling us to call for help. The second one is message encoded. Again, we must choose the correct form of communication. Is it that it's going to be verbal, meaning that we are using words? Or is it going to be non-verbal, which means that we are using graphs, signs, and the list goes on? Then medium selected. So I like to call message encoded the how, whether it's verbal, whether it's non-verbal. And then the medium selected would be the what. What specifically are you going to use if it is verbal? Are you going to be writing a letter? Are you going to be calling on the phone? Or is it non-verbal where you're just going to be using a sign or a symbol to send out your message? So the medium selected is specifically what you are using. So we are going over to the receiver's role. And the first thing that the receiver needs to do is decode. We decode based on knowledge of terms, vocabulary, language used, for example. So you cannot decode a message, students. If you're sending it, for instance, you're using text language, and the person is clueless about what LOL or DWL stands for. So they must be familiar with it. Message interpreted refers to the understanding now of the message. And remember, words can have implicit meanings. They can have explicit, you have explicit and you have implicit. Remember the context. What were you talking about before? So if I say to you, Mommy, please pass my tablet. Based on what I was saying before, is it the device that Mommy will be coming with? Or is it some medication, so some prescribed medication? So that's how we interpret. And the last one, feedback. When we send out a message, students, it is inevitable that we need feedback. Feedback firstly tells us that, guess what? I got the message. And it also tells us the extent to which the person understands the message, because they could have interpreted it a different way from how you expected. And so feedback tells you exactly how this was done, all right, or their understanding of it. So we have a little activity here. The citizens in your neighborhood have organized a COVID response team to assist persons in and around your community who are in need of help due to the pandemic. This is a newly formed organization. The members wish to embark on a recruitment message. What two aspects of the communication process should the members consider before they begin to create the recruitment message? And I'm reminding you, students, when you have words in a question that is in bold or in all caps, pay attention. So we have two and we have before in all caps. So what are these two elements of the communication process that they should consider before? Is it feedback and medium? Is it encoding and decoding? Is it conceptualization and encoding? Is it interpretation and feedback? And I know you have your answer. So that should be conceptualization and encoding, thinking of what you are going to send and how you are going to send it. And we have another question. Using the same prompt, which of the following are effective ways by which the members of the COVID response team can convey their message effectively? Can they use a radio broadcast? Can they use flyers? Should they use television broadcast? Should they use a radio car? I need to get out the message. I want persons in the neighborhood to know. I want them to join. Which of these should they use? Is it 1 and 2 only? 3 and 4 only? 1 and 4 only? All of the above. What is your answer? Yes, we can use the radio broadcast. Yes, we can use the flyers. Yes, broadcast, television. Yes, radio car. So your answer should be all of the above. We head over to Lotta. School's not out. We will be right back. Get refreshed and come right back to the screen.
Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com.
COVID-19 tip. Protect yourself and others from getting sick by washing your hands after coughing or sneezing, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out, CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ.
COVID-19 tip. Protect yourself and others from getting sick by washing your hands after coughing or sneezing, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out. CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ.
COVID-19 tip. Protect yourself and others from getting sick by washing your hands after coughing or sneezing, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with a cold or flu-like symptoms. If you become ill, please visit your doctor or the nearest health center and share your travel history. The flu and coronavirus can kill. Let's protect each other. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, along with TVJ, present Schools Not Out. CSEC and CAPE lessons live Mondays to Fridays from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, with weekly Schools Not Out tutorial sessions on Saturdays from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Schools Not Out, live CSEC and CAPE lessons here on TVJ.
Get moving! Home workout series with Jamaica Moves.
Jamaica move, mobilize, exercise. Jamaica move, Jamaica move, Jamaica move, mobilize, exercise. Come on, take a selfie, breathe.
Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8:35 a.m.
Hi! We haven't left you out. It's Get Moving Kids. Home workout series with Jamaica Moves. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 2 p.m. on TVJ.
Get moving! Home workout series with Jamaica Moves.
Jamaica move, mobilize, exercise. Jamaica move, Jamaica move, Jamaica move, mobilize, exercise. Come on.
COVID-19 tip. Protect yourself and others from getting sick by washing your hands after coughing or sneezing, when caring for the sick, before, during, and after you prepare food, before eating, after toilet use, when hands are visibly dirty, and after handling animals or animal waste.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone.
Welcome back to Schools Not Out, your daily classroom for CSEC and CAPE subjects. Today we have been discussing Communication Studies, Speaking and Writing, Module 3. So, before the break, we looked at the elements of communication and we looked at the process of communication. We're moving right into facilitators and barriers of communication. So when we talk about facilitators of communication, we're talking about how we use things to aid the passing of information, which ultimately enhances mutual understanding of a message. On the other hand, barriers are things that affect the understanding of a message, and so it affects effective communication. What are some of these facilitators and what are some of these barriers? So, as we said, facilitators enhance communication. So we need to use the correct or the appropriate language. We need to use an effective medium. We need to select an appropriate channel, and we can use visual stimulus to enhance what we are saying. over to the right are barriers, literal noise. So that pounding music, that the sound of a vehicle, speech impediment, so you have a slur or a stutter, the type of language used, prejudices of speaker, sender's attitude, sender's background, physical barriers. So, oh my gosh, I just bumped my head. That pain is so excruciating that guess what? I don't want to hear anything. I can't process anything at this time. Psychological barriers. So this has to do with the mental aspect. I just got some bad news. Really and truly, I can't deal with anything. So I'm not able to process any other thing except what I just heard. All right, so it's a blockade. So these are facilitators. So look at this picture, students. Look at this picture. Let's look at the setting. Seems to be a doctor's office. The doctor is seated. He seems to have a patient in front of him. And there are other patients on the outside, unfortunately, standing. What is the barrier to communication here? So this lady is waiting, not to mention those who are standing and waiting. The barrier is evidently something that all of us are guilty of from time to time, the cell phone. Instead of dealing with the patient's case, and he seems to be enjoying that phone call as there's a smile, all right? So that's the barrier, the cell phone. Let's look at this one. So we are looking at facilitators in this one. I'm sure we can identify with this scene many nights on the news. So they are obviously demonstrating. But instead of simply using words alone, their shouts or their voices, what is it that they have used to get the message across, to show their desperation for help? They have used placards. So the placards also have words, so they help to get the message. That's added, an added way of getting the message across. So the placards would be the facilitator in this situation. Now imagine you're in exam and you see this on your paper. Study the cartoon below and answer the questions that follow. So, international arrivals. What do I do now? That's the first person. The other person says, when is he going to take my card? The female says, he seems a bit unfriendly. And look at the body language, students. And look at that gentleman in front of her. Whoa, personal space invasion. And the poor little man behind now doesn't know what is amiss. He says, I'm next. What should I do? All right. You have studied this photo in details. You listen to me reading, you're looking at their body language, and I'm sure you can identify where they are based on the heading, based on those extra objects that they have in their hands. So this is the first question. What type of barrier is depicted in the picture above? Is it psychological? Is it noise? Is it physical? Is it cultural? And I know you know the answer. Definitely, based on the context, we are realizing, students, that it is cultural barrier. They are not sure of what is the welcome pattern of these visitors. Which of the following should the receiving party have done to avoid this barrier? Should they have a tour guide pick up the visitor? Should they have a translator in close proximity? Should they find out welcome customs of the countries prior to travel? Or should they have a Zoom meeting to avoid travel? And I think this is a given. They should definitely find out welcome customs of the countries before they travel. All right, so we are moving into forms of communication. And when we talk about forms of communication, we are talking about the various ways of expressing ourselves. So basically, students, there are two discrete forms of communication: verbal communication and non-verbal communication. I want you to listen keenly to what I'm saying about verbal communication. There is a common misconception that verbal communication only has to do with speaking. So, what I'm saying to you now, students, is once you're communicating using words, whether it is speech, whether it's in writing, it is considered verbal communication. All right? Non-verbal communication refers to information sent not using words. So these are special forms of communication, like art forms or physical gestures, and all of this constitutes this category. So let us see some examples of both verbal and non-verbal. So you turn on your television and you see this on the screen. Nobody is speaking, but you just see this on the screen. Or you pass a notice board and you see this on the screen. It is verbal. Why is it verbal? Because it uses words, despite nobody actually speaking. We are seeing words, it's verbal. It's Friday evening, and as we drive along, oh my, what else can we eat at this time? And again, we pass this sign. It's finger licking good. All right, this is another example of verbal communication. Again, we are not speaking, we are just using words. Then, let's listen to this song, quite familiar to all of us. I specifically use this. It's the in-thing song now. And I'm just reminding you, although students, we have the beat going, the fact of the matter, it is verbal communication. It uses words. Inside, inside, right? So that's verbal communication. Let's look at the examples of non-verbal communication now. All right. So, non-verbal communication, we're going to look at 6 of them. 6. The first one says kinesics. Kinesics. And this is communication using our bodies. So, our posture, our facial gestures, all of those are considered non-verbal because we can send so many messages without uttering a word. So when we smile, when we roll our eyes, when we slouch, that is saying so many things to the receiver. Proxemics. Does this word sound familiar? Proxemics. So this refers to the use of space. All right, so we are seeing or hearing so much about social distances, 6 feet apart. All right, we are not allowed to touch. And another one that you may be familiar with, and I want you to be looking at me. So when we go, for instance, to school, and you know that you normally sit at that seat, and you come there Monday morning and somebody is in your seat. Just that one look says, guess what? Up, I'm here now. All right, so that is proxemics, the use of space. That's my space. We have the other one called chronemics. So chronemics has to do with time, waiting, or pausing. So I'm expecting a response from you. I'm waiting on a response from you. All right, we are familiar with this to students when we are at competitions, like for winners. So they're about to announce the winner. And guess what? We need that adrenaline. We need the enthusiasm going. So many emotions going. So just before the announcement, that waiting pause right there gets you all excited. All right? And this is also a feature sometimes of a speech. After chronemics, we have graphics and symbols. Graphics and symbols. So students, you are used to this, particularly in specific subject areas. So you are doing the sciences for argument's sake. There you will see tables, you will see charts, you will see a diagram, all right? Braille. The semaphore, in case you don't know what so Braille is for those who are blind, those little dots. Semaphore, it's communication using flags. We have graphs, as I spoke about earlier, tables, sign language, all right, using the hands. So remember, these are all non-verbal. They are not using words, all right? Paralanguage. Now, oftentimes, students are not so keen on paralanguage. So let me explain for you clearly. Paralanguage refers to non-verbal elements used to modify meaning and convey emotion. They also include text communication, what you spend most of the time doing, texting. So remember, it's not what this be specific now. It's not the words that you text. It would be the emojis, because remember, we are looking at non-verbal, all right? So when you use those symbols, those signs, those emoticons, as we call them, that is paralanguage. And I want to also tell you that paralanguage has to do with the stress. So don't touch it. You notice the stress in don't? Then we have intonation. And that has to do with your tone, right? You think I'm afraid of you? You think I'm afraid? All right? Speed. I said do not touch it. Slow, but it is telling you I'm serious. Volume. So if you are upset, for instance, you tend to shout. So remember now, students, the paralanguage is not the words that you use, but basically how you say it in terms of your stress, in terms of your tone, in terms of your speed, and your volume. We have dress. So you should know, students, that our attire says a lot about us. First impressions are lasting. Sometimes when people see you without actually meeting you, they have formed so many impressions about you just by your attire. It is after that they start speaking to you or with you, it will confirm if their initial concept is in keeping with, you know, how you attire, or your attire is quite the opposite of your communication. All right? So, examples of dress, social standing. So sometimes in different countries, remember now customs, we have to think about customs. So in different countries, students, attire shows social standing. The middle class dresses different from lower, different from upper. Dress also is in keeping with occasion. So somebody can look at how you are dressing and without asking you any question, they can say, okay, she's going to a wedding or a formal occasion. Okay, she's going to a funeral. So even the colors, so we know dark, black, purple, these are associated with funerals. Mind you, these days we are hearing about cheerful colors. All right? It tells you about your mood as well. How am I feeling? So I am feeling very cheerful this morning, happy. So I wear my bright colors. As opposed to not feeling it this morning. I just drag on something, maybe a dark colored. So my attire is saying something about me. The group that I belong to, so we can easily identify when we go on the street, students, who is a nurse, for argument's sake, Who are the students? Right? Because their dress speaks volumes. And again, I spoke about profession. So whether you're a nurse, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a pastor, your attire can dictate all of that without you actually saying anything. Now let us look on these pictures just to reiterate the point and to remind you what these are. So kinetic students, remember, this has to do with body posture and facial expressions. So this young man on the left is seriously enjoying a joke. In contrast, the young lady on the right is quite annoyed. Proxemics, do you remember what proxemics is? So that is distance or space. All right, some of us have our personal space. Claustrophobic, don't want anybody around us. All right, and we have others who just like to be touching and hugging. All right, so these pictures, we have this sign that we're familiar with. We have, this is in a plane. This lady has reclined to the annoyance of the passenger behind. All right, then we have chronemics. So I want you to listen and tell me what you remember about chronemics. Let's listen.
The winner of the Sweet 16 season of Digicel Rising Stars is...
All right, we're not going to announce the winner this morning. However, the point is, we are waiting. We're waiting with bated breath. Who is it going to be? And you hear the music too? So that's a part of the nonverbal, you know, create all of that excitement, right? That anxiety. Is it he? Is it she? All right? All right. Then we have dress. We can speak volumes when we talk about dress. So the first one here is a bit dark and gothic for argument's sake. All right? And a lot of things come to mind when we see that picture. Then right below that gothic look, we have uniforms. So students, right there and then, once a person is in Jamaica, they can quickly or readily identify which school these persons are associated with. To the top right hand, we have the kente cloth. And based on my readings, it is said that the kente cloth is worn by a particular class of persons. Obviously, those who are not impoverished. And the last one here, these are rappers. You see the heavy chain, right? You see the jewelry, right? So they have a particular look, a particular way of carrying themselves. And that's dress. Now, paralanguage, you're going to help me with this one. I was told, and I've found out now, students, that we can have an entire conversation without one word. We're just using emoticons. So I want you to look at the screen now and help me to decipher what these emoticons are saying. So on my left is the receiver, and on the right, the sender, and on the right we have the receiver. So here what happens now on this first one with the sender. Guess what? Somebody punched me in the mouth. Hear what the receiver says. Oh, that's so sad. You have me crying. And then the sender confirms. Yes, really sad. But guess what now? The receiver says, guess how we're going to deal with it? So he says, I'm thinking, and I'm coming up with a grand idea. Hear what you're going to do now, man? Punch him back. And it doesn't end there. Give him a bad punch. You see? So give him a bad punch right there. And lastly, he says, I think that's a perfect idea. Work with it. So students, you see how we analyze this. And this is used apart. Remember I said emoticons are a part of paralanguage. Separate and apart from that now, students, we have the Braille, right? And we have sign language that also constitutes paralanguage. And then there is a short clip that you're going to watch that shows the tone, the stress, the volume. So, and this should be engaging because this is in a movie that you're all familiar with. So let's tune into this now. Okay, I'm sure you enjoyed that. And it should have reminded you and confirmed now what we mean by paralanguage, or tone, or volume, or pitch. All right. Let's look at our activity. Movie is over. Let's get working again. You have been invited to represent the student body at your school at a local press conference to give feedback on online classes. You are representing your school and will have to present a short speech. Name 2 types of nonverbal communication other than body language you could use to both present your speech and represent your school. What are those 2? Is it dress? So I've already revealed the answer. Dress. We have to get dressed because remember, students, you are representing your school. And paralanguage, because your delivery will take into consideration your tone, your pitch, your volume, all of that. Let's look on the second question. Which of the following nonverbal cues from the audience could show that they are bored by the presentation? This is a tricky one. I want you to work it out. I am asking for nonverbal cues from the audience that show that they are bored. Is it texting on their phone, maintaining eye contact, looking outside continuously, nodding in approval? So right there and then we can take out 2 and 4 because we're talking about boredom. Now students, I'm thinking that some of you may have written or chosen texting on the phone and looking outside continuously, which would be A. But guess what? It is only 3 because what is in bold? I told you earlier, look out for these words in bold. Non-verbal. So when you're texting and using words, students, it could not be classified as non-verbal. So look out for these little things as you read your papers. All right? Functions of nonverbal communication. So when we talk about functions, what are the different purposes that nonverbal communication? We spent a long time talking about them. They are used for complementing or reinforcing. They are used for regulating. They are used for substituting, contradicting, managing impressions, and establishing relationships. So, very good. I want you to look at me. Complementing and reinforcing. When I say well done, I am saying well done and I'm also clapping. So nonverbal reinforces the spoken word. All right. So the other one says regulating. Regulating. So we are seeing a young man holding up his hand. We are seeing the teacher pointing. So when we regulate, what do? Control. So that one hand signals to the other students that guess what? I need to answer. And the pointing of the teacher signals to the other students, this is the one person, the one voice that should be answering at this time. Then we have contradicting. Oh yes, look on this young lady's face. But look at what she's saying. Very impressive. Can't you see my excitement? So we are seeing the opposite. The face is showing that, guess what, I'm not intrigued in the least, but her words are saying the opposite. So the verbal contradicts the nonverbal. Another function is managing impression. Look at this. So we can use nonverbals to for persons to form impressions of us. So when we look at this picture, students, we see a young man, dapper, dressed to impress. Look at the hair, not to mention his ride. All right? So we are seeing here this young man. This is what we call real rich. And right there and then you're saying, yeah, man, this man has money. And the last one, as it relates to the functions of nonverbal, is establishing relationships. Remember, it's nonverbal. So a wedding band, for instance, students, is saying, I'm taken. Look somewhere else. All right? And I'm not only thinking about rings. So when we talk about establishing relationships, you travel to Atlanta for argument's sake, and you're in a Jamaican t-shirt. All right? You go on the mall and you see another person in a Jamaican t-shirt. And you just want to walk over because you're saying this is identity, this is another person, this is another Jamaican. And you just walk over and you make fun. Are you Jamaican? And then it develops in a conversation. So you're establishing a relationship right there. All right, so let's look at the activity. Hi, my name is Leah Logan. And what's yours? He says, hi, I'm Liam Robinson. Nice to meet you and welcome to D&K's warehouse. Female says, thank you. Now look at the picture. They're shaking hands, they're smiling, and they're talking at the same time. What purpose of nonverbal communication is depicted in the picture above? Is it complimenting? Is it regulating? Is it substituting? Is it contradicting? And your answer should be complimenting. We're going to quickly go through context of communication as time is quickly going. Now there are 7 of them that is on the screen, or you will be going through. Intrapersonal, students. Intrapersonal has to do with self. So when you dream, when you write down in your diary, when you speak aloud to yourself, you are not mad. It's called intrapersonal. Interpersonal now is communication between 2 or more persons, and it tends to be face-to-face. So an interview, a conversation, a dialogue. Then we have small group. Now it tends to be between 3 to 10. Some text will tell you 3 to 12. And so you get an example of this with your chat room, your Zoom, your video conferencing. That is small group. Organizational context is where we talk communication taking place in the workplace for argument's sake. So your staff meeting, your operations meeting, and newly developed COVID meeting. Academic context. So we are in an academic context here. So my lecture notes on the screen here, because this has to do with both teacher and students. What your lab reports that you write, the stories you write, the notes that you take. All of this is in an academic context. Intercultural, as the word suggests, culture, the melting pot. Communication with persons from different cultural backgrounds, just like what was depicted in the picture with barrier. So when we send off Miss Jamaica to Miss World, for argument's sake, she is meeting or socializing with other ladies around the world. Or we go to a CARICOM meeting. And lastly, public. When we talk about the public, or you may hear mass, it's synonymous, all right? It involves transmission of a message from a single source to large numbers. So, a press conference, the nightly news, the Prime Minister addressing the nation, that is public or mass communication. All right, context of communication. So let us quickly end by looking on these exam questions. You have been asked to head the graduation committee to plan your graduation ball. What context of communication is evident in the first meeting with only 6 persons present? All right, your answer should be small group. Let's roll again. You wish to share the plans for the graduation ball with the rest of the sixth form body who may be at various locations since schools are closed. The following medium would be the most suitable to disseminate the information: an informal WhatsApp message, letter in the post, flyers distributed in halfway tree, a formal email from your school. Certainly, the best way would be a formal email from your school. You plan to print the tickets, but you're unsure of the exact number. Which aspect of the communication process will you need to rely on? Is it medium and feedback, encoding and decoding, conceptualization and feedback, medium and decoding? Your answer should be medium and feedback. And our last question. While watching the nightly news, the Prime Minister reminds viewers that there should be no social gathering. What function of nonverbal communication is seen if he shakes his head disapprovingly as he says the word no? Is it managing, complimenting, establish, or controlling? It is complimenting because he's talking as well as he is shaking his head. We have come to the end, students, of another communication studies class. We looked at elements, the process, the barriers, forms, purpose, and context. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I hope I reminded you about some concept, and I have always said and will continue to say, remember to practice. That's all for communication studies, speaking and writing. We hope you grasp most, if not all, the points we discussed. You can catch a repeat of today's lesson on JNN Today at 4 p.m. and in the Schools Not Out highlights on Saturday between 1 and 4 p.m. right here on TVJ. We are also on video on demand on One Spot Media. Until next time, I'm Kelleen Ayton. CSEC Agricultural Science is up next.
Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos and also to see live events, click here. To see our full videos on onespotmedia.com, click here. Thank you very much for watching. Hi there, I'm Simon Preston from TVJ. Thank you very much for watching our YouTube channel. To see our latest videos,